By 3:17 a.m., I was sure the thing in the hallway wasn't human anymore. Its movements were jerky, almost mechanical, and the air around it smelled wrong, like iron mixed with something rotting. I froze, heart hammering, as it turned its head just slightly, and I swear I saw eyes that weren't eyes at all. They reflected nothing familiar, nothing human. A low, guttural whisper slid across the floorboards, echoing off the walls, though no one else was there. Behind me, a door slammed shut with a deafening finality, even though I hadn't touched it. The blood, I don't even know whose, stained the carpet in a pattern that didn't make sense, as if the house itself had arranged it. And then there was the mirror. What I saw in that mirror, I can't describe it. Not yet. It's something I'm not sure I want anyone to see. I stumbled backward, my mind scrambling for rational explanations, but the rational had long left this place. The shadows stretched and twisted, whispering things that might have been my name. And just as suddenly, everything went silent. I wanted to run, but something, some force I couldn't name, held me in place. But none of this would have happened if I hadn't taken that stupid bet. It all started with a stupid bet among friends. We were scrolling through abandoned house listings online, daring each other to find the most notorious place we could and spend a night inside. That's when I found it, the so-called Holloway Estate, a crumbling mansion no one dared enter after dark. You guys kept commenting about this house after my last story, insisting I check it out. I laughed it off at first, but the challenge was irresistible. The rumors surrounding the Holloway Estate were endless. Decades ago, a caretaker reportedly snapped, killing his family before disappearing into the woods, never to be seen again. Over the years, guests who tried to stay overnight vanished without a trace, leaving only scattered belongings and a faint trail of blood. Locals whispered about strange noises, shadowy figures, and doors that opened on their own. They say if you last the night, you'll hear her voice before dawn. One comment read, and I shivered despite the bravado I was trying to maintain. Everyone talks about the attic, but no one talks about what's buried in the basement. Some claim the walls themselves are alive, holding the echoes of every person who ever suffered inside. The stories blurred together, forming a legend so thick it practically breathed through the cracked windows and splintered doors in the photos online. Despite all the warnings, I agreed. The adrenaline, the clicks, the likes, it was too tempting. I needed to see for myself if the Holloway Estate was just a story or something far more sinister. At first, it didn't feel scary, just empty. But empty things can lie. And as I approached that decaying front door, I had no idea how much the house was waiting for me, or how much it already knew. The drive out to the Holloway Estate felt longer than it should have, winding through narrow, overgrown roads that seemed to swallow the headlights. When I finally reached the house, the sun was dipping behind skeletal trees, casting long shadows over the cracked stone steps. The front door was unlocked, like it had been waiting for me, and I hesitated only for a second before pushing it open. A rush of stale air hit me, carrying the faint, metallic scent of rust and decay. Inside, the house felt almost normal at first. Dusty furniture sagged under years of neglect. Wallpaper peeled like curling leaves, and the floorboards groaned with each cautious step. Flickering lights overhead cast uneven shadows across the walls, creating the illusion that something moved in the corners of my vision. Something in the air felt wrong, like the house was breathing, watching, waiting. A notice scratched into the wood above the staircase caught my eye. "Don't go there after midnight." I laughed nervously. Of course I was going to go there after midnight. I had to. The thrill, the clicks, the story, it all demanded it. Still, the words stuck with me as I explored the main floor, each room amplifying the quiet tension that had been growing since I first saw the estate. I set up my camera in the living room. That's when I heard the first sound. A soft scraping, distant but deliberate, like nails across the floorboards. I froze, knowing in that instant that the house had stopped pretending to be empty. I tried to shake off the creeping unease as I moved through the main floor, but the house had other plans. The lights flickered, briefly plunging the room into darkness before sputtering back to life. Each time it happened, My heart skipped a beat. A low whisper seemed to trail along the hallway, soft enough to be ignored, yet insistent enough to make my skin crawl. I held my breath, thinking it was the wind, or maybe my own imagination. Then I remembered. The windows were nailed shut. I stepped cautiously toward the staircase, trying to rationalize the sounds. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Mark flashed on the screen. "You're gonna die in there, bro." I laughed nervously and replied, "Huh, very funny. Everything's fine." But the message did little to calm the rising tension in my chest. I noticed a door I hadn't seen before, tucked behind a sagging curtain. Something about it drew me in, though instinct screamed to stay away. I knew I wasn't supposed to open that door, but the curiosity was unbearable. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob. Before I could, a sharp bang echoed through the hall, and the door swung shut on its own, rattling violently against the frame. I jumped back, my pulse racing, and for a moment, I could hear nothing but my own ragged breathing. The house was testing me, I realized. It was small, subtle things at first, the flickers, the whispers, the doors, but they all carried a weight of intent, a silent message that I was no longer entirely in control. Every step I took seemed anticipated, measured, waiting for me to cross the wrong threshold. I backed away from the door, telling myself it was nothing, that I was imagining it all. But then the air shifted, colder now, heavier, pressing down on me with a presence I couldn't name. Midnight hit, and the house woke up. By the time the clock struck midnight, the house no longer felt like a mere abandoned structure. It felt alive, aware, and hungry. The whispers from earlier had grown louder, overlapping into a chorus that seemed to come from every wall at once. The floorboards beneath me creaked in ways that no human step could produce, and shadows began to move where they shouldn't, stretching unnaturally along the hallway, bending around corners that didn't exist. I trained my camera down the long corridor, trying to capture something tangible, but the screen flickered violently, glitching with static. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure at the far end, a tall, thin silhouette that didn't shift naturally, almost as if it was stitched together from the darkness itself. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet remained rooted to the spot, hypnotized by the presence. And then it happened. When I looked back at the hallway, there were more doors than before. Doors I hadn't noticed in my previous sweep, some warped and sagging, others impossibly new and solid. One door, in particular, drew my attention. Its frame was darker than the surrounding walls, almost bleeding into the shadows. The lock glinted faintly in the dim light. There was something behind that door, something that wasn't supposed to be there. My heart pounded in my ears as I inched closer, camera trembling in my hands. The whispers seemed to gather at the threshold, a cacophony of voices urging me to stop, begging me to leave. I told myself not to go near it, but of course I did. Something about that door called to me, compelling me forward, and with every hesitant step, I felt the house tighten around me, like a predator drawing its prey into the center of the hunt. I reached for the doorknob, the cold metal shocking against my sweaty palm, and for a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Beyond that door was a secret the house had been guarding for decades, one I wasn't sure I would survive discovering. The smell hit me before the door did. Sweet, rotten, like something that used to live, decaying slowly in the corners of the room. I hesitated on the threshold, the camera shaking in my hands, but my curiosity, or perhaps foolishness, propelled me forward. The room was small, claustrophobic, and impossibly dark despite the flickering light from the hallway. A mirror leaned against the far wall, its surface marred with deep claw marks that ran jagged across the glass. I caught glimpses of myself in its reflection, but something was off. My shadow moved independently, twisting and stretching in ways that should have been impossible. Against another wall, a rotting cradle rocked gently, though no breeze stirred. Its occupant was gone, leaving only the faint impression of a small hand in the dust. Photos were pinned haphazardly to the peeling wallpaper, faded, black and white images of people whose eyes seemed to plead silently, as if trapped in the house long after their bodies vanished. Some faces were scratched out, others obscured by shadows. A small notebook lay open on a table, pages filled with spidery handwriting describing rituals I couldn't comprehend, rituals clearly not meant for human hands. I took a photo, but I can't show you here. Not everything in that room should exist beyond those walls. I stepped back, feeling the air grow heavier, oppressive, almost aware of my presence. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet I lingered, trying to memorize every detail, knowing the memory alone might be a curse. That's when I heard it, footsteps, coming from behind me. Slow, deliberate, echoing through the floorboards as if someone, or something, was tracing my every movement. I realized then that I was no longer alone, and whatever shared the room with me had been waiting. It was there, just beyond the cradle, a shape that shouldn't exist in any dimension I knew. It didn't move like a person. Its limbs were wrong, elongated, jerking in unnatural rhythms, and its skin seemed to ripple like dark water under a faint light. It didn't even look at me, but it knew me. The air thickened with a stench of rot and iron, and every instinct screamed to flee. A low, guttural sound emanated from it, neither growl nor whisper, vibrating through my chest and rattling my teeth. I wanted to scream, but my voice refused to leave my throat. My camera lens caught only glimpses, flickering like a faulty signal, hinting at claws, shadowed eyes, and movement that defied physics. I realized then that whatever this thing was, it had been here long before me, waiting. If you've ever seen anything like this, comment below, because I need to know I'm not insane. The room felt alive, closing in, walls pulsing in time with my heartbeat, shadows twisting into shapes that promised more than terror, intent. I ran, but the house wasn't the same anymore. Every step I took echoed with the memory of its presence, and I knew it had imprinted itself onto me. Somewhere, somehow, it had followed, patient and watching, ready for the next moment I thought I was safe. I don't remember how I made it out. One moment I was staring at the shifting shadows. The next I was stumbling down the driveway, gasping for air, the first hints of dawn brushing the sky. The Holloway estate faded behind me, but relief never fully arrived. Something had left with me. I could feel it, subtle at first, a presence clinging to the edges of my awareness. When I got home, my door was already open. Nothing had been disturbed, or at least, nothing obvious. But small things began to move. My keys disappeared from the table, then reappeared on the couch. Objects subtly shifted positions overnight. The camera footage, the only evidence I had, was corrupted, blinking in and out with fragments of shadows and shapes that made my stomach churn. And the whispers, they didn't stop. Not in my sleep, not in the quiet moments before I had to face the day. Sometimes I wake to hear a voice brushing against my ear, words I can't understand but feel deep in my bones. I've tried to tell myself it's over, that I imagined it. But there's one last thing I haven't told you, and I don't think I ever will. Some secrets refuse to be spoken aloud. By 3:17 a.m., I was sure the thing in the hallway wasn't human anymore. And now, every creak in the house, every shadow on the wall, makes me wonder if it's still there, or if it's already inside me. So, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Should I go back and face whatever waits behind that door, or leave the Holloway estate buried in mystery? Drop your theories. I need to know what I saw, because some nights, I still hear it whispering my name. If this video disappears, you'll know why. And for those of you who followed my other stories, you know this isn't the first place that shouldn't exist, and it won't be the last. Keep watching, stay curious, but be careful what doors you open.